The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with the panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today we are going to start our examination of this situation with Israel and Iran and what is happening in the world. So, Mark, Scott?
Well, we're going to turn our attention to Israel.
All right, Scott.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah. First, I want to be clear about this. I think that I thought this at the time in 2015 when Barack Obama signed the JCPOA deal to limit Iran's ability to enrich uranium and or plutonium and find their way to a bomb, that the people of the United States should have been out dancing in the streets. And we weren't. And I don't know how we missed it. I certainly would have been out there dancing in the streets if other people would have been as well. But, immediately the Heritage Foundation and Fox and all the other right-wing media came out against it. They focused on this idea that we were giving them money, unfreezing assets of theirs, pallets of money, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a good enough deal that would have prevented them from gaining the uranium enrichment needed to create atom bombs. And that was a good deal. Of course, a couple of years later, Trump becomes president. Everyone, including John Bolton, who's never met a war he didn't like, agreed that Iran was complying with the deal and that we should stay in the deal. But Trump pulled out of that deal and left Iran to their own devices, which has not worked out well. Biden tried to reconstitute that deal, was unable to. Trump brought it up almost immediately upon retaking office again. And what we've discovered is that while he's been talking to them or having Steve Witkoff talk to them, they've been enriching more and more uranium every single month that has gone by. And here we are. And in reaction, Netanyahu finally struck against them. And we're in a situation now where, there are a lot of unknowns about what we're going to do. Trump said this morning, again, nobody knows what I'm going to do, which I think includes himself. And it remains to be seen how we're going to proceed from here. But I think that Netanyahu, who I do not like and do not support, said something true the other day, which is we are not in the 11th hour anymore. We're in the 12th hour. Like, this is it. This is happening. And because it's happening, we need to take this seriously. The time for talking is probably over. There's not going to be a deal to be made here. And I would suggest that they do everything in their power, not just to stop the uranium enrichment, not just to stop the creation of atomic weapons, but to change this regime, to topple the rest of this regime and, see what happens after that. And that's a sad place to be. Didn't want to be here, but that's where we are.
Let me go back to the original. When this first started, my wife asked me, she said, what do you think? Because we had family coming over from Israel. They were coming at the middle of this month, and now they're not coming because Tel Aviv airport, nobody wants to fly into it. None of the carriers want to, so they had to cancel their plans. And my comment was, well, you got to blame the British, because the damn British were the ones that created the Middle East as to what it is today, and it's really all their fault. But as Scott said, maybe it is time to just let them hammer it out and see what happens. However, if there's to be a new power, if Iran is defeated, and I truly believe that they would be defeated, if they are defeated, please do not let the United States be the ones to make the decision as to what should be the new form of government there. Because if there's nothing we have proven that we are really bad at, it is setting up new forms of government. So it's a very, right now we're in that stage where we're talking about the war and where the war is going to progress to. I think it's interesting that Trump made the statement the other day when he was coming back from the G7 summit that number one, we have control of the Iranian airspace, as if we, the United States, are directly involved. That was a very interesting statement because it made the impression that we were actively involved in this. Now, maybe he meant, of course, maybe it's possible he meant, no, the equipment that we send, we're going to take some credit for that. I don't know. But usually when somebody says we have control of airspace, usually that means we are actively doing something and not proxy wise. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. It's going to be interesting to see, let's remember, Iran had a great friend in Russia, but their hands are, their plate is pretty full right now. It'll be interesting to see what the other Arab nations do. I know Iran is not as popular, a popular Arab nation over there. There's a lot of issues. So you got to sit back and you got to wait and see how this plays out and exactly how much force the Israelis are willing to bring to bear. Now, we're going to be running into the same issue that we ran into after October 7th. The question now becomes how long, what is that time frame that Israel has to make this a reality if they're going to do it before the world turns against them? Because it happened after October 7th. And I think Scott and I were both surprised. I think we both basically thought, again, understanding how bad we are at predictions, that it would be about 2 weeks before the world, Israel, you got to get in there and take care of this in 2 weeks, because after 2 weeks, the world's going to turn against you. It was 2 days. Now the question becomes, what's going to happen when, if Israel gets in there? I'm going to give the same advice as I did after October 7th. Better get in there and do what you're going to do and get it done fast. Because the world, for some reason, they like you for a little bit, and then they don't like you anymore. And then there's all sorts of issues. The difference is going to be, in my mind, maybe I think Israel will get a little bit more time with this. Hamas was in Gaza, a very small area, and they were the underdog. They were truly the underdog. To the world, although Iran, I don't think has close to the military capacity that Israel has, I think it's not even a fair fight. But I think the world looks at Iran as more an even match, a more fair match than they did with Hamas. So we'll see how that plays out. I really do hope that if they're going to do it. I'm with Scott. I don't agree with Netanyahu at all. But I will say this: when my brother-in-law made the call and said that, well, we're not going to be able to come, his one comment was, it's Iran. May they be totally wiped off the face of the earth. That is his attitude, and he was an American now living there. His attitude is wipe them out. Now the only question is does the rest of the Israelis feel the same way, and what price are they willing to pay? And I think that's really going to be an interesting question for the Israelis to answer, and exactly what this absolutely clown car president and his clown car cabinet, what they're going to do when it comes to this. Are we going to get involved? He was the president of peace when he ran. Oh, I'm no wars. Well, here we go. I honestly think that what he's going to do is he's going to sit back, let them slug it out, and he'll back whoever wins. I see Scott smiling about that.
Well, what do you think about like our bunker buster bombs, whatever these things are called? Because as I understand it, the Ayatollah Khomeini is in a bunker somewhere, and where he's not facing any personal concern physically, but he's also completely out of contact with what's going on in reality. above him. So that's what is needed are those. But I do remember the term bunker buster bomb, although that's not obviously a technical
Well,
issue.
Brooklyn, to be honest with you, I don't think they need it. I mean, let's face it. Let's remember how good Israel is at taking out people that they want to take out. They're really good at this. Mossad is I don't know of any other agency in the world as good as Mossad at taking out people they want to take out. I don't care where you're hiding. I really don't. They've shown this capability time and time again. You know, killing Iranian leaders, killing the leaders of Hamas, killing the leaders of Hezbollah. They're really good at this. And unless you're at the core of the world, I don't think you're safe from anything. I don't think the bunker buster bombs I don't even think that's a concern of theirs.
You know, it's obviously it's hard to know exactly what's going on. There are so many contradictory reports. But one of the ones that I thought was most interesting was that they brought up the idea of assassinating Ayatollah Khamenei, right? The supreme leader, which basically translates to president. You know, we would just call him a president if we were translating it correctly instead of supreme leader. And that Trump told them not to. So Trump has now come out and said, you know, he's giving him a chance to come to the table and make a deal. I think that the time for dealing is sadly ended. You know, I'll totally blaming that on Trump for leaving the JPCOA in the first place, being, you know, unable to get a deal at the time or since then, and having them essentially string them along while they're continuing to enrich uranium just turned out to be an intolerable problem for the Israelis. So let's think this through, because taking, you know, a couple of weeks ago, if you remember D-Day, Trump was sitting with the German chancellor and he said, D-Day, that was a rough day for you guys, D-Day. And he was surprised. I mean, you could see it in his face, completely surprised when the German chancellor, Friedrich Merz, said to him, that was the beginning of the liberation of the German people from the Nazis. And he kind of was taken aback by it. I think he assumes that modern day Germans look back fondly on the Nazis. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I also think that he's mistaking, very likely in my mind, what the people of Iran want from what they turned their government in 1979 over to the Ayatollahs, and they've suffered ever since. So taking out the Ayatollahs and allowing the Iranian people to live their lives and have a government that they want to have is a real possibility. And when you think about what Iran has become since 1979, it's nothing short of tragic. They suffer from severe human rights issues. They have very, very limited freedom of expression. They have no political participation, no real political participation, because it's a theocracy, and the religious leaders run the place and make the decisions. They have presidents who get elected, but the presidents are not the people who run things. And think about this. This year, 2025, over the first 4 months of this year, there have been 343 executions of political prisoners in Iran. That's a 75% increase over last year. In April of this year, there were 110 executions, the highest of any monthly total. Iran's government is a racist state. 35 people from the Baluch minorities were executed in April. That's Baluch minorities make up about 2 to some say 6, as much as 6% of the population, but they're 32% of the people who are being executed in Iran. Kurds accounted for more than half of the 164 people executed over the last 10 or 12 years, including this year 6 Kurds executed. So the people there are suffering tremendously because of the Ayatollahs. I do believe that there's a good chance, that they would cast off this theocracy and become a democracy. Just because it didn't work in Iraq doesn't mean it won't work here. And that there really is a chance that this should be allowed to happen. That's kind of where we are. Now, as far as bunker busters and that ability, clearly we've never tested that weapon, right? The whole idea is that you drop it from a very very high place, so it needs a very specific airplane, and it penetrates 200 meters or so underground before it explodes, and that should be enough to take out the bunkers that are beneath the facility at Fordo and the mountain there, enormous concrete bunkers below ground. It's possible. It's also possible that the Israeli commandos could probably find their way in there and take it out from within without dropping huge amounts of ordnance. And they haven't dropped any, as far as I can tell, on Fordo at all. But that they're going to continue to chip away at this program, right? They can't do it all at once, but they can do it over a period of time, getting deeper and deeper every single time. And that the United States doesn't need to be directly involved in it. But one way or another, at some point or another, Trump is going to have to make a decision on it. And it goes against every instinct in his body, I think, to get involved in this. It's highly likely that he'll talk tough and then do nothing. I think that's kind of his MO. And that the Israelis are on their own. The wild card, Mark brought up Russia. I think he's got a good point. Russia's got their plate full. But the wild card here is China. 90% of the oil that Iran exports goes to China. So far, the Israelis have not targeted oil fields. They're not trying to stop Iran's basically underground economy, which is like the 14th largest economy in the world, from running, and China is the beneficiary. You don't want to draw China into this, so you want to keep the flow of oil going as long as you possibly can. And the Iranians themselves may try to interrupt that flow of oil and then draw China into the conflict, which would be probably a master stroke of strategy if they were able to do that. But it's not clear where China would stand on this, other than the fact that they want that oil to be flowing. I don't think they care who's in charge of getting it to them. So it's a very complicated situation, made more complicated by the idea that we don't know what we're doing. We're waffling right now. We look weak. We are being weak. We're not being decisive. And I don't know how much longer we can continue to do this and play this game.
So we're going to continue our discussion of the evolving situation between Israel and Iran. And thank you very much to our listeners, as always. Thank you for spending some of your time with us on the Nova Society. We appreciate your support. We'll be getting back to our listener questions. Do send us your emails with your questions. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society. I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. The JCIS is a publication of NovaWorks, a scholarly depository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description.